Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined as always by Sam Proof. Today on the show we're going to be talking about the 59-second challenge, a new approach to sort of speeding up the process of creating vertical short form video and how you can have a little bit more fun and be a little bit more efficient at the same time. So that's coming up on today's show. We are going out live to all the various places, so please let us know in the chat where you're watching from. And Sam, normally I would probably ask you, in fact, I'm going to jump ahead because I know this was something we are going to do a little bit later, but I understand Twitch have made an announcement that you're very excited about in particular. So can we talk about that first up?
Sure. It's been a crazy week for like feature releases from not only Twitch, but like YouTube as well. But the thing that really stood out to me is CEO Dan Clancy made an announcement at TwitchCon. There he is. That's Dan. Looks like a big hippie. And he said that they're going to open the gates of multi-streaming for Twitch. So previously, about a year ago, they started to allow streamers to multicast to mobile platforms. So like TikTok and Instagram vertical platforms. And then Dan said that after seeing sort of how streamers were leveraging streams on those platforms to their Twitch stream, they were going to drop the restriction altogether. There are some caveats to that. You cannot lower the quality of your stream to sort of compensate for this or make another stream look better. They will not allow you to encourage viewers to go to a different stream or link during your stream to a different platform. You can still have those links on like your about section in your descriptions and things like that. But just not on the screen kind of thing or in the chat. And along those lines, using any kind of third-party integrated chat overlay, that's also off the table, which kind of implies that for those of you gamers out there who are using like the StreamYard or Streamlabs, the Streamlabs overlays that do like subscriber announcements and things like that, since those are branded, those are probably forbidden as well as like live viewer counts. Like I have X many on this platform watching and X many on Twitch watching. Probably can't have that anymore.
It's funny because obviously this news came out earlier today, and you and I probably had very different reactions to it because I know you're quite invested in Twitch. I don't really do anything over there, so I wasn't that excited, but I guess as an outsider, it seems like Twitch kind of feel like they might be the center of the world a little bit. And I think it's fascinating, all these, and just a series of things they've sort of been suggesting that their creators can and cannot do. It's been fascinating to watch.
Yeah, they've had a lot of rules come and go, and they early on were like, we are the top of the mountain and we're not given any rope on that. You want to leave, go, the door's right over there. And that's how it's been. But I think I think they've recently seen that with sort of Kick's exodus of users, that maybe they need to rethink some things.
Absolutely. And hello to Saeed, who's watching on LinkedIn, just said, sounds like the rules of Fight Club. Number one, you do not talk about Fight Club. So it's interesting. It'll be really interesting to see how that sort of plays out in the long term. But I mean, obviously the people over there are certainly excited about the possibilities at the moment. So I mean, that's exciting, I guess.
And sort of one last thing on that is there were, of course, a lot of streamers who were either lost partner or decided to leave to go to, the greener grass. Go, good God, this is the shiny thing, Kick. And so they dropped their partner status on Twitch, and Twitch is now saying that if you come back, you can get it back. So that's
okay, cool.
It's interesting.
It certainly is. So this is the video and live streaming show. If you're watching live, throw in that hashtag Team Live, or if you're watching later on, Team Replay, that would be awesome. Speaking of hashtags, though, we do also have a Blue Sky invite to give away today. So if you are watching, use the hashtag Blue Sky in the chat, and you'll go into the draw at the end of the show. Make sure that you're still here for some instructions on how to actually get that. The thing we do need to let you know, though, is we are going out to a lot of different platforms.
Yes.
You really need to be on either YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitch to actually go into the running for this one. So if you're not in one of those places, maybe head over to one of the other channels. But yes, that's all coming up today. So, there's a lot happening in the world. Today, we're sort of talking about vertical video specifically. And I guess I want to set the scene for this one a little bit because I feel like vertical video is a great opportunity, but it's also potentially a lot of work and it's a different way of working. And the thing that I traditionally did for this show was that I would record, my end of the conversation. Sam would record his end of the conversation. I would bring that into my video editing software and watch the entire thing again, make some cuts and do all the things. And I find that is a lot of work, if I'm being honest. Yeah. And I kind of think it might be more worthwhile if we think about the things we're capturing up front and hopefully focus more on what we're capturing and not worry too much about having to edit too extensively, if you know what I mean. And I guess the place I want to start with this conversation is, and I know this will be triggering for some of you, but a long time ago, we saw the introduction of a thing called Twitter. And I know Twitter is not the same thing as it was, 15 odd years ago. But when Twitter first started, there was a character limit of 140 characters. The reason for this was actually sort of historical and technical in nature. That was the character limit of SMS messages on cell phones. Mm-hmm. But the great thing about that, for those that actually embraced that challenge, was they became really concise and they could make points really, really well. So I think, to me, short form video has its own constraints built into it. Admittedly, different platforms will have different time limits, but for today's discussion, we really want to focus on 59 seconds as being our maximum, just so that we have the maximum repurposing opportunities for our content. So, Sam, what do you sort of recommend people might need to think about in order to be more on point and more concise?
Yeah, I mean, really what you want to do is like cut to the chase and drop out anything that is not really integral to the point you're trying to make. Figure out, what is the problem you're addressing and what is the solution to that problem, and get rid of any of the fluff, bring it down to like the smallest amount you can and set it up with a really compelling hook. And that's all you need. It's like, if you're going to tell a joke, do a quick setup and like go right into the punchline. There's no time for improvising and running around for 3 different scenes. We're not doing a Herald. This is a very niche reference. You're not doing a stage play. This is get to the point, like establish your talking point and what your particular insight is on that talking point.
And again, I think in terms of metaphors, like, if you think about a traditional horizontal video, it's probably more of a chapter of a book. Whereas with our short form video, really, you're probably working with a paragraph, 2 or 3 sentences probably max. Yeah. And I know I've complained about this in the past, but one of the things that kind of irritates me as someone who spends an obscene amount watching TikTok videos is that people will actually do a really good hook and I'll be like, that's awesome. Tell me the answer. And then they'll go off and do this little bio, which drives me nuts. And I usually, if I'm being honest, I don't usually have the patience to sit through that.
Yep.
So I just sort of flick off to the next thing. So
yeah, and that's why.
I think it's, yeah. And I guess especially like if you're excited to share content about a particular subject, it's probably worthwhile to actually, grab a bit of paper or something, write out all the ideas and think about how you're going to chunk those. And, if you're covering one large subject, we want to sort of focus on individual aspects of that subject so you can create a series. Because I guess that's the other thing. You don't really want to create a single short form vertical video. Like that's not going to do anything for you as a creator or as a business or a service provider. So you've got to sort of think about, what you're building towards.
Yeah. I was going to say like the thing with, vertical videos, is they're just the taste, right? You want to try and leverage that to get them to have you on their mind more so that they go, oh, what else does this guy do? And then they can, go search out for your VODs or your live streams or your podcast, whatever it is. It's generally it itself is not the thing. There are some people who are breaking that, that statement completely at this point, but they're doing it really, really smart. And yeah, the best vertical videos, they're not just off the cuff. Like, there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of scripting, there's a lot of like really cultivating what's happening.
Absolutely. And I guess the other thing that's worth mentioning for those that may not have experienced, the viewing experience of watching these videos is you can search them out, you can look for particular topics, but a lot of the time algorithms are just serving things up to you just to see if you're interested in them. So again, I think that's another great metaphor. We're full of metaphors this morning, but it's that first bite to see if you can get people interested in your content more generally. So this is the video and live streaming show. I'm just going to say, we'd love it if you could like and subscribe wherever you happen to be watching this. And again, I think it would be really interesting, and let us know in the chat if you experience this, but if you're on YouTube right now and you like and subscribe, let us know if something's a little bit different there. We won't tell you what that is yet because that's coming up in a moment. But there have been some changes during the week. Sam alluded to them earlier. But we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about actually recording and making sure that you're not extending your time too much. Also, a way that you can speed up your vertical video recording process with software. Again, there are all kinds of tools. We're going to talk about one specifically. And we're also going to talk about the importance of captions and how you can do that. So that's all coming up on today's show.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. Mm-hmm. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a segment from Sam's podcast, Just Kitten Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. Today we are talking all about ways to actually speed up, be more efficient in terms of your vertical video production, and have a little bit more fun along the way. So that is the focus of today. And I guess, one of the things that we need to do, we've spoken about the importance of being concise. We really have a very real time constraint here. And again, we're talking 59 seconds as the maximum duration that we want our videos to be. Again, I alluded to the fact that a lot of the content I had been creating for vertical specifically had been segments of this show. And the thing that drove me nuts is that the segment I want to share is invariably 1 minute and 6 seconds long. Like it's always that way. And you spend a fair bit of time just trimming out whatever silence, speeding things up, deciding what part of it's more interesting. Yep. But again, let's see if we can sort of change our approach here a little bit today and maybe record with that constraint in mind. So I think, first of all, it's really important to practice doing this because this won't necessarily come easily. And it's a skill like any other, and you're going to have to practice it. And I think it's really worthwhile to use a timer of some description. There are so many options out there. There are things on your phone. Google literally has a timer. If you search the word timer on Google, you can set something up in your browser and be ready to go. Another thing that is really useful if you've got an Elgato Stream Deck is this little feature here. So again, you can set a timer, you can set the duration, and it'll play a sound when it's done. And again, that's really, really useful. There are all kinds of options. I'm going to show you another one that we're going to play with a little bit today in real time, so that'll be fun. But again, I guess the only thing that you want to be conscious of is that if you are using a timer to record this, unless you want to let your audience know about this constraint, maybe it's a fun game, you probably want to be careful that you're not recording any kind of alarm or audio that's coming out of that particular device.
Yeah, along those lines, I actually do a show called Creator Clash, in which I attempt to do a voiceover while my audience has the ability to mess with me, speeding up my teleprompter and throwing sound effects over it. But what I wanted to say was, you can also in OBS, because I do that in OBS, put a countdown on screen, and then you could record your ISO source so that it doesn't see that countdown. Whole lot of nerdy stuff. Nobody needs to know that. But if you want to, find me live and I'll go over it.
And again, I should say that we're going to talk about recording into OBS and the Aitum Vertical plugin today. But really, whatever your process looks like is totally fine. Whether you're recording directly to your phone, whether you've got a more serious camera, whether you're doing things on the computer, that's great. I guess the thing we want to think about is, can we do this more efficiently? Can we potentially go in and batch these recordings? So I'm going to press a magical little button here on my Stream Deck and show everybody something here in a second, although I've got to make sure I've actually got focus on this window before I do that. Okay, so this is actually something called vclock.com. Again, it doesn't really matter what you use, but I thought it might be fun for us to actually try and talk about a subject for no longer than 59 seconds. And neither of us have prepared very much on this front, so it'll be really interesting to see. If you want to check this one out, you can go to the edit timer options. I can sort of put in a timer amount. I can pick a sound. I can give it a title if I want. I'm just going to go start. And I'll stop that and restart it. So what we're going to attempt to do here in real time, and it's probably going to be a disaster and it's probably going to be really hilarious to watch, is that we're going to talk to a couple of different subjects that have cropped up during the week. And I think I'm first on... Oh, yeah. Let me just not move that around too much. Yeah, I think I'm first on the list, so I'm going to talk about a new feature in Camtasia. So again, we haven't even practiced this, so it's going to be hilarious one way or another, but I'm going to go for it. TechSmith have released a new feature for Camtasia called Camtasia Rev, which essentially lets you adjust. You sort of go in and record your video camera, your screen share, your audio, your system audio, and then it'll give you a number of different options to easily create vertical video, horizontal video, square video, and it'll actually give you a number of different layouts by default. So it really speeds up the process of combining all those elements that you've just recorded. It's a new feature for Camtasia 2023. If you're not already seeing it, make sure you update your software. But it has some great filters, some great backgrounds and effects in there as well. It does use the AI background removal feature, which I don't personally love. I much rather work with my green screen and remove a color. But it's a really great way of speeding up your process, so definitely check that out. And there you go. I've got a few seconds to spare, which is really, really good. Okay, that sounds not going to get annoying anytime soon, is it, Sam? No. So, I mean, there's an example. So we can, and we'll talk more about how we would actually record this in the next segment. But Sam, are you up for this challenge?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll get you to talk about Twitch stories this time. So
right.
That's a new feature. So let's go restart and start.
Can Twitch kill TikTok? Twitch released a vertical video feature this week, so partners and affiliates who have streamed this month will get access to post Twitch stories, allowing channels with the feature to post vertical video or pictures or text on a canvas for up to 10 to 60 seconds, and they disappear after 48 hours. This is a great way to get more engagement with your viewers. And if you have 30 or more subscriptions, you can offer this as a subscriber-only story, which is a great incentive for people to subscribe to your channel. The downsides for me, can't be downloaded. There's no hashtags or links involved. And there is a built-in cropping feature that takes your Twitch clips and turns them into a vertical video. It automatically auto-centers in the frame, so you may have lost the interesting thing just out of frame, and it's only available on mobile.
Okay, awesome. It's interesting because you've been talking about that feature on social media a lot lately, and I didn't know the part about it only being available on mobile. Because I don't think I've got access to it because I'm not much of a Twitch creator, and I think they're restricting that a little bit. But there we go. So we've got a couple of examples.
I'll say, just to tack on to that, the one thing about it only being on mobile, the Twitch app is not very friendly to people who have multiple accounts, whereas like with YouTube, you can hook up all of your accounts and pretty seamlessly switch between them. To go from one Twitch account to another, it's like log out, username, password, verify. It's a pain in the butt. So Cute Avalanche is going to get tons of stories. Sam Proof's viewers, sorry, you're probably not going to see any.
It's one of those situations where you think, I probably need a second phone, which is really annoying because nobody should need a second phone. But sometimes I've been trying to do some streaming to Instagram, and it's just been a nightmare. And it's been a nightmare because I don't own an iPhone, essentially, which is really irritating. But we're getting a little bit off track, so let's we're gonna do a little bit more practice. I'm gonna reset the timer. Again, I'm gonna do the next one, and I'm not even gonna tell you what it's about. Let's just get stuck in. Do you like Elgato gear? I know I do. I've got the Stream Deck Extra Large. I've got the lights. I've got the multi-mount system. They do really great equipment for people that are into video and live streaming. Their latest offering is actually a teleprompter, so an Elgato prompter. And it's a great device. It's been really thoughtfully put together. It uses USB-C. The digital display is actually included with the purchase. They've actually included their own camera hub software, which lets you have scripts on there. It lets you do things with comments on various services we're provided. And it's just been really, really thoughtfully put together. So make sure you check that one out. I'm really impressed. I don't think I can actually get my hands on it here in Australia right now. But if you can, I'd highly recommend you check it out. Because I tell everybody, a teleprompter is a great piece of gear for anybody. I don't know about my delivery there too much, but I was very conscious of the time constraint, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Sam, finally, you want to talk about a YouTube feature.
Yeah.
So let me reset that and go.
All right, I'm calling this one YouTube Really, Really Likes You. YouTube just released 36 new features this week, but the one that I am most interested in is something you should have been doing all along, which is asking your viewers to like and subscribe to your channel. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to our channel. Now, to make it more enticing, you can, when you encourage your viewers to like and subscribe to your channel, YouTube will highlight those buttons on screen. And for those who do, a little animated explosion will reward them. So I'm betting that this is going to increase likes and followers by a substantial number. Try it out and get back to me and let me know if you've seen it. I haven't actually seen it out there yet, but here's hoping. I'm sure they roll it out slowly. That's the way YouTube is.
Absolutely. And, you know, if I was a bit more organized, I'd probably have a bit of a, drum roll for that little joke about the subscribers. But anyway, so there we go. We could do that potentially for the end of time. So yeah. It's just a habit that you kind of need to get into. It's all about the practice. Again, I just want to check in with the comments. So Saeed is saying that El Gato means the cat in Spanish.
That's true.
It absolutely does. Yes. So I mean, it's a skill that I think you do need to practice. But again, if you know that you've hit your talking points and you've done it within that time constraint, you don't need to worry about removing all those extra words. You don't need to worry about getting rid of extra space. It can speed up that process quite enormously. So I'm really curious, like if you are watching live, is this something that you're interested in exploring? Are you doing vertical video at the moment? Do you feel like maybe you should be, or are you just happy to leave it to one side for the moment? Again, you don't have to do anything. You're the boss of you at the end of the day. We're all adults, so you can certainly check that out. But I am really curious to see how the average person watching might feel about that. So, all right. We're going to come back in just a second and talk about how we can streamline this even further by recording it in specific software. I'm very excited to show you that, so much so that I can barely speak. But we'll be back in just a moment.
And then I looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video, and it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm-up. And I freaked out That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
Clip from my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can learn about more at johnlacey.com. That was Michelle J. Raymond talking about overcoming her fear of being on camera. And I think that's probably a subject for a future show, because everywhere I look, I see people that want to do video but just can't drag themselves to be in front of the camera. So the good news is it's a very natural concern, and unfortunately, the only way through is to actually practice that. So I just want to check in with the chat before we continue. Okay, so speaking of teleprompters, do you think they would help for a 59-second video? This is a great question. And the thing about this is that, and again, there's a good chance if you've been here for a hot second, you've probably seen this before, but I just want to show you. So my camera lives inside a teleprompter 24/7. It's not the Elgato one. It's although it is mounted via Elgato, the multi-mount system and a couple of strong arms. So the great thing about this is that whether you're actually reading a script, whether you're just, even if you're not reading a script, you actually know where to look and you've got an eye line. So it could be that you're just looking, directly into the camera and you want to make sure that you're maintaining that eye line. But it's really, it can be a really amazing tool. And even just for video calls, the sort of unfortunate reality for a lot of us is that our camera's probably here and our monitor's somewhere over here. So while we're talking to people, it never looks like we're actually looking at them. And that can sort of have a bit of a psychological impact as well. Actually, before we continue, I'm going to do a couple of things at once. So Said has got this great comment in the chat. Would you mind just reading that one for me, Sam?
Yeah, it says, I see more and more vertical videos with those blurred bars at the sides on LinkedIn. So I think, I think a lot of people are trying to jump on the vertical video bandwagon, and they're trying to repurpose content. And what you'll see is, content that doesn't fit a vertical frame. And they'll just shrink down a 16:9 inside a 9:16, and you'll get blurs on top or bottom is probably what you're talking about. And I would really tell you not to do that. Like, find the time to go in there and clip what you need to clip. John's not going to like this, but there's tons of AI tools out there that will automatically clip these things in 9:16 for you. And some of them will even punch into the faces. And I've had mixed luck with trying to do that with this stream. But yeah, some are better than others. And I assume if you're willing to pay for it, then they better be better. But yeah, I would avoid blurred bars or black bars or anything like that.
It's funny, and I totally appreciate where you're coming from, Sam, but I'm always surprised as a bit of an audio snob and a video snob, the kinds of things I will watch if I'm interested in the subject matter.
That's fair.
And I guess, like, in some ways, by all means, if you don't want to sort of crop and edit into a vertical format and you do have horizontal stuff to start with, by all means, throw it in the middle of the frame, but actually design some stuff around it to make sure it looks intentional. You've got a fair bit of space at the bottom and the top if you're going to do that for things like those burnt-on captions. You can have some branding. You can have a call to action. You can maybe tell people where they can go to watch the show, live in future. Like, there are all kinds of opportunities out there. And again, this has been a bit of a running joke on this show, because the thing that Sam has said since day one is don't spread yourself too thinly. And the thing that I generally come back with is, if I've got something, I'm giving it away for free, I just throw it up into different places and see what happens. And I've been making some OBS Studio specific videos on YouTube and LinkedIn lately. And a part of me is really curious to see if I upload a 10-minute video, what's going to happen there. And there's a good chance nothing will happen there, because I'm not particularly popular on TikTok anyway. But I'm just really curious to actually give that a go and try it out.
Yeah,
So I mean, you know, if that happens, I will certainly let you know how that progresses. And a big hello to Michelle J. Raymond. I think maybe her ears were burning because
right.
we just played that promo featuring her, but it's great to see you. She's an expert in all things LinkedIn and LinkedIn pages specifically. So check her out if you want to learn more about that. But today on the show, we're talking about vertical video and sort of a different approach to vertical video. As I said earlier, sometimes, like, it can be tempting and it can be useful sometimes to take a long piece of horizontal content and repurpose it. But sometimes it's just easier to just record something specifically for the output that you're producing. So, Sam, let's talk about OBS and a great little plugin for OBS. So, OBS Studio is this free and open source software. It's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's totally free. There is a little bit of a learning curve and people do get a little bit nervous about this software. We try really hard to help people get over this fear of this software. Yep. And I'm developing all kinds of resources to help people do that. But if you want to check that out, that's over at obsproject.com. One of the great things about OBS Studio is because it's open source software, there's a huge developer community that are actually producing things to extend its functionality and allow it to do more things. One of these actually comes from Aitum. So Aitum have their own software. I don't know much about Aitum's software. Maybe we should talk to those people and learn more about that. But they do have this OBS Studio plugin called Aitum Vertical, and it's been really, really cool. And it essentially gives you the ability to stream or record in a vertical format, as well as potentially doing the same in the horizontal way as well. And you can learn more about that plugin and download it for free over at aitum.tv. So, Sam, I'm not really sure where to begin here, but let me just remove this from the stage and I'll bring this one over here. And again, I know the minute we do this, people are going to get very, very nervous. So just
look at all those docs.
Yes, there are all kinds of things you can do here, but you don't need to be as advanced as Sam is. So what we really want to focus on today is just the vertical and the horizontal aspects of this. And it's there's a lot going on there.
So side note is that I, for this show, do automatically record on both the horizontal and the vertical. So here's my vertical plugin. You would go to Aitum, I think it's aitum.com, and download the vertical plugin. And you have to install that into your OBS, which that's a whole other conversation. And if you need help with that, come back to us. I don't have a demo for that ready. So we're just going to go into the tool.
You can download an exe file for Windows that has its own installer. It's really easy, actually.
Yeah, because it was championed by Harris Heller, and anything he does is going to be top notch. So yeah, that's great. So this is it over on the side here, the Aitum plugin. It is already recording. You can also use it to stream. And if you're familiar with OBS, you'll know that it has a replay buffer, which the Aitum plugin calls the backtrack clip. So it will take your last few seconds that you can pre-design how long that is and make like an instant replay kind of thing happen. Much like OBS has a virtual camera, the Aitum plugin has a vertical virtual camera. Whew. Not easy to say.
The reason for that, and I didn't understand why this was necessary, and I actually reached out to Aitum to ask. And the thing about this is if you are streaming to TikTok, you can't do it through third-party software. You actually have to use their software tool. And if you want to set up your scene with your graphics and your animations and you know your different scenes and sources, the only way to sort of get that information into TikTok's software is via the virtual camera. But again, for today's purposes, I think all we really want to focus on is, that we've got essentially these two canvases. We've got a horizontal canvas and we've got a vertical canvas. And again, in the same way that we sort of spoke about this recently, speaking about the virtual camera, let's really restrict ourselves to just a single scene for today. So we don't want to do too much, but maybe you want some graphics, maybe you want some text on the screen. And the way that once you've got those sort of things set up, you can sort of be, you can actually literally go to the little, I mean, it's already switched on Sam's screen, but there's a little record button and it's ready to go. And I guess the thing, like I didn't try to do this myself because I've got a lot of things running on my computer at the moment, but those examples where we just spoke for 59 seconds, Sam would very easily be able to go in and grab that recording and have it already in on sort of a vertical format.
Yeah, and in this situation, I'm going to have one big long recording for this entire stream, and I'll have to cut it out. But if I were to go, specifically into this with the intention of just recording, not streaming, but just recording, I have a Stream Deck that has a start and a stop record function, and I would just hit that to start it, hit that to stop it, and I have one ready to go video right then. And I could do a bunch of them, a batch of them. So I just want to show it's this one. So like, here you go. I have a series of tips, which are fun things to do with Alexa. And there's a counter over here with a number. I literally have a list of over 100 items, and I can hit a button. I can't do it right now because I need a chatbot to be running, which would fill our chat with spam. But I could hit a button on my Stream Deck. It would call the chatbot and change this number. So I could actually do something real nerdy, which I know John doesn't want me to get too technical, but I can hit start. I do whatever the thing is, the fun things to do with Alexa Part 12, and I read whatever the copy is. Then I hit my stop button, and it automatically raises that to number 13, as well as stopping the record.
Absolutely, yeah.
When we were
so
talking...
I guess...
Go ahead, John.
We don't normally talk over each other. It's unusual, but I'm just gonna, like, this is a ridiculous photo of me, but I just want to show you this because I'm a little concerned that some people are going to be freaked out by the sheer number of docs that Sam has on his screen right now.
Yeah,
but
that's more basic.
Essentially, like what we've got the horizontal version of our stream or our recording, and we've got a vertical one, and they can use the same sources. So in this case, my camera is the same for both of these, but I do have sort of a different background. I mean, it looks visually the same, but it's different dimensions. So I've got a different background. I've got a different sort of gray bar, and I've got my logo actually in a different position for those images. And like literally, even if you didn't have anything on the horizontal version, you could just set up the vertical. You hit this little red round circle just underneath it, and you're recording a vertical video. And when you're finished, you just press that button again. It'll go to your videos folder. If you want to double check where that is, you can actually go into the settings. But essentially, you can have a video that's sort of ready to go. I might just move over here in case you inadvertently... okay, you were showing us something. Okay. I was just a little concerned that you might have been showing some stream keys, but yeah.
The stream keys, they're smart. It's blurred out. It's
okay, cool.
All dots. Also, that particular stream key is an Instagram stream key, which you can only use one time anyway. So go to town on that if you can figure out what the what the black dots are. So yeah, on my screen, which is much different than what John just showed you, also we had, it seems like an older version of the Aitum plugin installed. I have some extra buttons down here now that weren't in his. So you have the plugin itself on the left with the video readout. And then on the bottom right, I have my scenes. And then next to that, my vertical sources. So the horizontal ones are traditionally on the left here. So this big window, scenes and sources are on the left. Vertical has its own scenes and sources. I was going to say something else. Oh, so earlier, Saeed mentioned how there's a lot of people on LinkedIn that are doing vertical videos that have blurred bars at the top and bottom because I assume they're, taking a 16:9 and making a 9:16. My workaround for that is you do something like this, which this should actually, we can throw, nope, maybe are these both the same? Let's do this and this. And we'll do a display capture and grab, no, this one where John and I are. So assumingly it wouldn't be a situation where we have this sort of infinity thing going on.
Yeah.
And I could throw myself down just a little bit. And now I've got focus on me, but a reference to my co-host in this. So if we let's maybe go to this layout, it's a little more obvious of what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's a good quick way to get around that kind of scenario where you're clipping something down because you have multiple people talking. Anyway.
Absolutely. And I guess like I'm just madly trying to share something just to make this point. So like that is another great use case, because this is an approach that I've often taken, and we'll talk about actually getting some captions into CapCut in a moment. But essentially, like, I always recorded, in fact, it looks a little bit weird. I might stretch that out a little bit. But essentially, I'm taking Sam's horizontal version of the video and putting it at the top of my vertical video. So as long as when I'm setting up my scene in the vertical plugin, that I just make sure I've got that space. And I literally have an image that I put, that I sort of have, that I can toggle the visibility on and off, just to make sure I've got that space empty so Sam will fit there. And in this case, like, you know, I think you saw in the screenshot that I might have had my logo at the top, but I obviously don't want that obscuring Sam's view. So again, there's all kinds of things you can do. And again, Sam's very nerdy. We love that about him, but I just don't want to scare off the newbies. So again, just think about setting...
I gotta tell you a few things.
So again, like, if you keep it simple, and like in this screenshot with my ridiculous facial expression, you'll see that we have two lots of scenes and sources. The top ones are in this particular view, and you can rearrange these docs however you like. But in this case, the ones on top are the horizontal, and the ones at the bottom are the vertical scenes. And like I said, they can be the same, or they can actually be different. So, you know, it's up to you. There's a whole bunch of other things, cool things that it does. You can actually sync the horizontal scenes to the vertical. So if you switch scenes, they'll both change. You can have the same branding. You can have different branding. Whatever you want to do, the creative possibilities are kind of endless. But I just wanted to sort of bring that up as another option. So obviously, you don't have to use this software. We just think it's cool, and it's all completely free. I will be producing some resources on how to use that in more detail in the near future. But I guess the thing is, whatever your process is totally fine. If you're recording to your phone, if you're recording to your camera, if you're recording to computer, whatever you're using. But the thing is, we want to be efficient. We want to be able to say, okay, these are the 10 1-minute clips that I say 1-minute clips, I'm rounding up a little bit there, that we're recording today, and we're just going to record one at a time, or maybe we'll record them all together and we'll just cut them out. But we have a good sense, because we are using a timer, that they are the right dimensions, and we won't need to sort of cut too much out. So that's certainly something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and we have done an entire stream about the Aitum plugin before, so you can look for that in our archives.
Absolutely. Okay, this is the video and live streaming show. I was going to ask Sam to see if he can trigger that YouTube interaction before we move on to the next segment.
Oh, you mean the one where I say, please, if you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe to this channel.
Absolutely. Okay, so this is the video and live streaming show. I just want to mention briefly too, I've started a Learn OBS Studio newsletter and collection of videos. So if you are interested in checking that out, you can head over to johnlacey.com/OBS news. And, you know, again, OBS is an incredibly powerful piece of software, but the truth is you don't need all the options. You don't need all the features. You can start as simply as you need to. And again, as much as we love Sam's nerdiness, you certainly don't need to start there.
Yes, you do. Nope. You should have every single piece of your production automated through... No, I'm just kidding. But speaking of kidding, your signed in says, I'm streaming on Sam's Instagram as we speak. As long as you're more handsome than me. That's all I ask. Please do it justice.
Okay, awesome. So this is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking all about the 59-second challenge, just a new approach to creating some short-form vertical content for your content creation. And let's talk about captions. So captions are a very important consideration for accessibility, but they're also a bit of a mainstay for vertical video. We're used to seeing them. A lot of us may be browsing our phone with our audio switched off. We might not be free to listen. So it's a good idea if we can sort of think about including that, either as an SRT file or burnt captions. And we're going to talk about that today, right now, in fact. Okay, so let me just try this one over here. All right, so this is CapCut. So there are plenty of great software out there for video editing. The reason, and CapCut is very good, but I guess the reason that we sort of start here is because it's literally free. So if you can use a free tool, it's not to say that you can't advance to something else further down the track, but let's just start with this one for the moment. So one of the great features about CapCut, and I'm just going to rearrange my timeline a little bit here, is that we've got the ability to add captions and actually have them physically show up on the screen. If you do have an SRT file, if you're using some kind of tool to generate the captions, you can literally just sort of drag it and drop it into the media library. And then if you go to text, it'll actually pop up in this local caption section. But if you haven't done that, and again, the great thing about short form vertical video is that it is short. So even if you have to adjust some manual captions yourself, it's not a huge job. So just make sure that you are in the text section of CapCut, go to auto captions, specify the language that you're using. Again, we've got English here. There is an option to clear the current captions as well. So if you've already got some captions that may be incorrect, you can do that, and we can hit this create button. And it'll do its thing in the background, and eventually we will actually see the captions that it has produced for us. Obviously, any of these automatic caption things aren't perfect, so it's really important to actually go in and double check what we're seeing here for accuracy, because sometimes these things can be funny little errors, and sometimes they can border on being offensive. So we want to make sure that we're not putting things out into the world that we don't want to be there. So now that we've actually got our captions selected over here, we can come up to captions. These are listed out. I guess the other thing, and again, it slightly annoys me, is that these captions are totally in lowercase. So I would probably encourage you to include a bit of capitalization here as well. But essentially, we can go through each one of these, and we can just make sure that what is actually written here is correct. But we also want to think about how these things are displayed at the moment, because at the moment you probably can't even see it, but the text is coming up white on top of my white shirt in this particular image. So if we head over to the text options, which is another tab over here in CapCut, we can change the fonts. And I guess the first thing to note is we have this apply to all option. And I do recommend that you come in here and actually do this and apply it to all before you do much else. So what we'll do, we can pick a font, we can change our font size. Normally I like to do this at about 11. I could pick a different font. Sometimes I like to use this sort of bold font, which is kind of, I don't even know which popular creator it was that sort of popularized the use of that one, but it is an all caps thing. Again, that may or may not be great for you. You can decide on that for yourself. But if we scroll down, we've got options here to make it bold, underlined, italic. And we can also change the case. So we can change this from uppercase, lowercase, and title case. And this is actually a brand new feature. This was one of the things that was introduced before I upgraded my software, literally before the show started. But again, for our purposes, we probably want to come in and change the color, because at the moment we can't see that white where it is, but I'm probably going to move it. So we might just make that red for the moment. We've got all these alignment options. We've got a number of different presets as well. So it could be that there is something in this list that we can just click on, and maybe that would work pretty well for us. So you've got all these options to explore. Again, we can think about the position and the size. This position, and again, you could literally sort of just drag and drop this into the position you want it to be into, but you can also adjust the numbers. The interesting thing about the X and Y coordinates is that they will sort of center it in the frame. So if you want to go lower, you can do a negative number. So if I go negative 500, it'll bring it down. I think the number I usually like to use for this is about 800. So it's sort of covering the bottom of where Sam is at the top of the screen here. But again, I feel like you're dying to say something.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, along these lines, all of the vertical platforms are a little bit different in where their caption, like where their built-in sort of captions and descriptions and titles and different things like likes and whatever show up. So it's pretty easy to Google like a safe zone guide that encompasses all of those, and just grab one of those, put them into your project, so you know that when you're putting your, text somewhere, it's going to look good on all of the platforms, and you don't have to move it around and make 4 different versions, one for each.
Absolutely, and again, I don't know how obvious it is from the screen share, but there is literally a black bar at the bottom of my screen, and part of that is just to not cover over the top of the elements within TikTok, especially. So it's worthwhile designing those things in. As Sam says, you can definitely go in and grab those templates pretty easily. But I mean, we have all kinds of options. I guess the important thing is just to set this up however you like. They've got backgrounds. I often like to actually have a background here and fill it with a background color. We can do that as a solid block, or sort of this section that covers just the words themselves. You can round the corners of that. You can change the height and the offset. There are glows, there are shadows. We can do all kinds of stuff there. And essentially, once I've got the basic settings, what I want to do is sort of just play through the video. I'm going to hear this. You probably won't hear this. And I really love hearing the sound of my own voice. It's just delightful. But what we're kind of looking for here is just to make sure that, the text reads okay. Yeah. And sometimes what you'll find, and again, I don't know if this particular video will have a great example, but sometimes you will find that CapCut actually breaks the words in a really weird fashion.
Yeah, if you talk really fast like I do, it will make interesting choices, and you're like, and you have to go in and sort of split a caption and delete everything to the left of one side, and then go to the next part and delete everything to the right of it, and then you have 2 separate captions that make more sense. Which, honestly, if you have time, I wish I had the time to focus down on captions and make it so that they're only 3 to 5 words per caption. But yeah, go ahead.
But I guess to Sam's point, if we return to the captions tab here, we can actually come in and you'll see sometimes that maybe, like, let's just imagine for argument's sake, maybe we think that second line is just a little bit too long. Maybe we want to break this after testing. I think, and this is testing my memory a little bit, I think if I go Control Enter, yes, okay, that'll actually bring it down a line. But if we wanted to, we could also hit Enter, and that would literally make, I say that, it didn't actually do it there. So Alt, Enter, Shift Enter. Okay, so yeah, no, it was just plain Enter. I just mustn't have done it properly. So if you do find that you think it would make more sense to actually be its own caption, you can certainly do that as well. But I guess what I find sometimes
I didn't.
So I guess sometimes what I find though is that it literally, like, I could have the word subscribe and the sub would be one line, and the scribe essentially would be on the next. And at that point, I often just make the choice to go Control Enter to bring that onto a separate line, just to make sure it's together. So, I mean, the caption options here are pretty nifty, but again, like, I think really we all feel quite busy. We all kind of want to simplify things and we want to make them as easy as possible, but there's a certain amount of quality assurance that needs to happen. So you're not damaging your own brand. That's how I feel anyway. So the great thing about this though is once you are happy with any of, how this works as a whole, and again, just make sure you check all of these. If you come in here and you deselect this apply to all, you can actually make changes to individual captions. Yeah. And it could be that, and in previous videos, like I've had something interesting happening over here and I don't want the text to show up there, so I just move it down. And again, let's just try that one as an example. So, maybe there is something I'll replace Sam with, and maybe I want to bring this down a little bit and go maybe -400. No, probably not there, because it'll... In fact, let's try -800. So maybe I want to have it down there. Also, if I come in and select a particular word, I can come in here and I can actually change the color. So if there's something I really want to bring attention to, and subscribe is sort of famously a word I associate with red on YouTube and elsewhere. We can do that as well. Maybe once I change that to red, maybe that that sort of glow effect. You know, maybe I want to change other things. Again, that's kind of up to you. I suspect I can probably even just do that for a single word. So maybe if I want to make that all caps, I can go to the uppercase option as well, or make it italic. Italic seems to actually change the entire text, so that's not a great example, but certainly a number of the other options are certainly in there as well. You do have options to introduce some animation, and I really want to encourage you, if you decide you want to add this animation, make sure you do it subtly and not for every word and every caption, because it can get very overwhelming very quickly. I know Descript actually has an option where they will literally animate one word at a time, and I think some people need that. I think some people with ADHD honestly appreciate that, but I think for most people it's not going to work. So just, you know, keep it relatively subtle. Make sure it's complementing the other things that are happening on screen. And basically, when you're happy with your video, you can go and export this. It'll burn the captions on, assuming they're visible. And if you wanted maybe a version of this without the captions on, I'm sure you could just hide the caption track with the little eye icon.
Yep.
But the great thing, the really interesting thing, and it's fascinating and it's kind of nuanced, and I don't want to dig too deeply into it because it's probably not for everybody, but it will export the video, but it'll also export an SRT file, which you can upload to places that support it. And oddly, TikTok, who are the owners of CapCut, don't seem to let me import it in that fashion.
Right.
But I can potentially bring that into YouTube and Facebook and in LinkedIn and different places. So those are a few of the options in terms of producing those captions. Again, there are all kinds of tools out there that you can use. So, you know, our standard response at this point in time is if something's working for you, don't feel like you need to change it. But if that is something you're interested in exploring, CapCut is literally free. You can get it on your phone. You can do it on desktop. You can even do it in the cloud within your web browser. So this is the video and live streaming show. Today we've been talking all about the 59-second challenge. I just want to check in on the comments for a second. So again, Saeed is saying, and I've got to press that button properly. There are also some great vertical videos, YouTube shorts sharing software tips like 5 Excel hacks in 59 seconds, but they look like a lot of work. I mean, often you do need to do a fair bit of work to tell a compelling story. Yeah. Although one thing I will say, and I don't think I've actually got, I don't think I've got an image handy for this, but my monitor arms, my monitors are on monitor arms, and I can actually move them from vertical to horizontal pretty easily. And if I am making a software tutorial specifically for vertical format, I can change the Windows setting and record it to sort of natively in that size. And that can help a lot. And I can sort of go into Camtasia and I can, you know, zoom into different places and animate different things. So it can be as easy or as complicated as you feel like you need to make it. But again, I guess the other thing that's going on in the back of my head is just that a lot of the short form stuff is very short-lived. So yeah, there probably is a point of diminishing returns. Like you don't want to spend a year making a 59-second video. And that's kind of, I think, the impetus for this entire discussion. So again, you've got to make a call about how much or how little you want to do in that regard. But I just think there's great opportunities in maybe speeding up this process. What we do know about this is a lot of platforms are serving these things up to different people just to see if there is interest for your content. And especially on YouTube, it sounds deeply counterintuitive, but having some well-performing shorts can really help with your overall view time, whether those people ultimately become subscribers or not.
Right, and especially on YouTube, where you can now link them to the long form version of where that short may have come from.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this has been the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today we've been talking all about the 59-second challenge. We'd love to hear if you give these ideas a try and how you find them. But Sam, where can people find out more about you and watch your content and do all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can head over to samproof.tv and find all of my social links in the top left there. You'll find me streaming throughout the week randomly, but always here Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you like cute cats, head over to cuteavalanche.com where you'll find all of our foster kittens and the 24/7 live stream that is also on Twitch and soon to be everywhere else. Thank you to Dan Casey, whatever the hell his name is, CEO of Twitch. How about you, John?
And if you want to check out what I'm doing, you can head over to johnlacey.com. Got a whole bunch of articles on OBS and various things. There are social media links at the bottom of that page too. So if you want, you can check that out as well. But thank you so much for joining us today. For those people that joined us live in the chat and those people that will be watching later on, we do appreciate your company. Hit that like and subscribe button, and if anything fancy happens because you're doing that on YouTube, tell us about that, because I haven't actually seen it in practice yet. I'm really curious to check it out.
Yeah.
But have a great week. Have a great weekend. We'll be back roughly the same time next week to talk about another video and live streaming topic. So if there's something in particular you'd like to hear about, let us know in the chat, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Have a good weekend.